This is what millions of people were saying within minutes of the final whistle in Atlanta on Wednesday night. Not about the comeback, not about Messi, not about England's heartbreak. They were saying that what happened next in the celebrations after the match ended was the moment this entire tournament finally showed its hand completely. That a white banner, 11 words long, held up by a substitute who hadn't even played a single minute, managed to condense everything this World Cup has been about into one image that no press conference, no formal complaint, no attorney general investigation had quite managed to produce before it. Giovanni Lo Celso, 30 years old, born in Rosario in the same city as Messi, standing on the pitch at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta with a banner reading Las Malvinas son Argentinas. The Malvinas are Argentine. 308 people died in the last war fought over those islands 44 years ago. And now, in a FIFA-controlled stadium during the biggest football tournament on the planet, with the cameras of the entire world pointing directly at him, Lo Celso held that banner up and grinned. FIFA Stadium Code of Conduct bans banners, flags, flyers, apparel, and other paraphernalia that are of a political, offensive, or discriminatory nature. That rule has been in the document since before this tournament started. It was in the code when Argentina's players received their accreditations. It was in the code when Lo Celso collected the banner from supporters in the stands and chose to display it on the pitch. And FIFA, as of the time this script was written, had not publicly announced whether disciplinary proceedings had been opened. So what really happens here? Not just the 30 seconds with a banner, but everything surrounding those 30 seconds. Everything that made this moment land the way it did in the context of this specific tournament, against this specific opponent. After 5 weeks of controversy that has produced more formal complaints, more legal investigations, and more documented institutional failures than any World Cup in modern memory. Let's go through every layer. The match itself, before we get to anything else, because the football deserves its full accounting. Anthony Gordon gave England the lead in the 55th minute, slotting home a pinpoint cross from Morgan Rogers and sending the sections of white inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium into delirium. England, who had not reached the Men's World Cup final since 1966, 60 years ago, were suddenly one half of football away from the biggest achievement in the history of their national team. Thomas Tuchel's side held that lead into the final 10 minutes. Argentina were pressing. Argentina were always pressing. But England held their shape. Jordan Pickford had an extraordinary match. The defensive block was functioning. And then, Messi found Enzo Fernandez on the edge of the area in the 85th minute. Fernandez controlled the pass, let the ball sit for half a second, and curled the strike into the bottom corner with the kind of composure that requires a different relationship with pressure than most human beings possess. 1-1. The stadium erupted in sound that the roof of that building, even closed as it was for the climate-controlled match, barely contained. And then, with extra time genuinely imminent, Messi crossed for substitute Lautaro Martinez to head home in the 92nd minute and complete yet another Argentina comeback from behind, in yet another knockout match that somehow, impossibly, they had found the way to win. For a fourth consecutive knockout game, Argentina had come from a position where elimination seemed possible and found the way to survive. Cape Verde had taken them to extra time. Egypt had led them 2-0. Switzerland had reduced them to 10 men in the quarterfinal and still needed extra time before Argentina eventually prevailed. And now England had led them in a semifinal with 5 minutes of normal time remaining. Each time, Argentina found something. Lionel Scaloni, their coach, said afterward that this team plays the best when facing a difficult situation with adversity. He said there was blood in the water and they went for it. That is the most accurate possible description of what has defined Argentina's route through this tournament. Not dominance, not comfort. Survival, through moments of individual brilliance that no amount of adversity seems capable of extinguishing while Messi is on the pitch. Messi, 39 years old, will now become only the second player in the history of football after the Brazilian Cafu to appear in 3 World Cup finals. He assisted both goals against England. He has 9 contributions in goal across this tournament. He played against England for the first time in his entire career on Wednesday night, having somehow navigated 38 years of football without ever being on the same pitch as the English national team in a competitive match. He won that first encounter with a cross into the 6-yard box in stoppage time. Here's where things get interesting, because everything that happened in the 30-second celebration afterward, the banner, Lo Celso, the grin, the crowd responding, the images being broadcast globally before the players had even reached the tunnel, arrived in the context of something FIFA has been trying to manage across this entire tournament and has consistently failed to manage cleanly. The banner itself is not a new story. It's a 12-year-old story. In June 2014 in Buenos Aires, in the final warm-up before that year's World Cup in Brazil, Argentina's players stood behind the banner carrying exactly the same words, Las Malvinas son Argentinas. FIFA opened disciplinary proceedings. The ruling came after the tournament ended. The fine was 30,000 Swiss francs, the equivalent at the time of approximately 19,000 British pounds or 37,000 American dollars, a reprimand and a financial penalty under Article 60 of FIFA Stadium Safety Regulations for political action and Article 52 of the Disciplinary Code for team misconduct. That precedent is directly relevant to what happens now and in what time frame. The 2014 ruling was published after the tournament concluded. If FIFA follows the same procedural timeline in 2026, Argentina will play the final against Spain on Sunday without any sanction having been officially applied. The fine, if it comes after the trophy is lifted or lost. But there are two differences between 2014 and 2026 that make this case more complicated than a simple repeat. The first is the match itself. In 2014, the banner was displayed before a friendly against Slovenia, a match with no opponent who had a direct territorial dispute connected to the message on that banner. In 2026, the banner was displayed after defeating England, the same country that sent military forces to the Falkland Islands in 1982, the same country whose people lost 255 lives in that war, the same country whose supporters were inside that stadium watching their team fall short of the first World Cup final in 60 years. That context doesn't change the legal framework under which FIFA will adjudicate the incident, but it changes the human weight of it enormously. The second difference is the repeat nature of the act. Argentina's federation was fined in 2014 for this exact slogan on this exact issue. The players who held the banner in 2026 cannot claim they were unaware that the message was considered by FIFA to be a prohibited political statement. The 2014 ruling established that. Lo Celso was 18 years old in 2014. He was not on that team, but the Argentine Football Association, whose code of conduct he operates under, was formally adjudicated and fined. That record exists. And in repeat offense cases across FIFA's disciplinary framework, the consistent direction is upward in terms of penalty. The petition that launched within hours of the banner images circulating documented something else entirely. 6 million people signed it by the morning after the match. The petition, hosted on a website called ArgentinaOut.com, demanded that FIFA remove Argentina from the tournament entirely, citing both the banner and what its organizers described as a pattern of refereeing favoritism benefiting the defending champions throughout this World Cup. 6 million signatures. That is not a footnote. That is a measure of the accumulated frustration of football supporters from dozens of countries who have been watching this tournament and building a grievance that finally had an image specific enough to crystallize around. Now here is the strongest possible case for the defense of what happened, because it deserves to be made honestly and completely before we examine it. Lo Celso did not play in the semifinal. He was a substitute who did not come on. He was standing in the celebrations as a participating squad member after a result of enormous emotional significance for his country. The banner was thrown from the stands by Argentine supporters inside a stadium where their team had just reached the World Cup final. Lo Celso picked it up. He held it up briefly. He was not alone. But the spontaneous nature of the act, banner thrown from stands, player picks it up in celebration without pausing to calculate the political implications of the message, is categorically different from a premeditated display organized by the federation or the coaching staff before the match. Argentina's players celebrate with passion. The Falklands sovereignty claim is not a fringe position in Argentine society. It is a mainstream national conviction that has been present across every generation. Asking Argentine footballers to celebrate a World Cup final qualification without any expression connected to their national identity is asking them to celebrate in a cultural vacuum. And the 2014 fine of 30,000 Swiss francs for an identical slogan upheld by FIFA's own process provides the established proportionate response. Nobody argued then that the fine was insufficient to address the seriousness of the violation. There is no institutional basis for treating the 2026 case as categorically more serious simply because the opponent happened to be England. That is the strongest case available. Here is why it doesn't close the argument. Because the context in which FIFA now has to decide what to do with this incident is not the neutral context of an ordinary disciplinary case. It is the context of a tournament, where 7 nations have filed formal complaints about officiating decisions, where 4 state attorneys general are investigating ticket pricing practices, where the FBI is examining more than $300 million that moved through American banks connected to the Argentine Football Association, where investigative journalist Romain Molina has published detailed allegations that FIFA protected the AFA despite ongoing money laundering investigations, where 6 million people signed a petition in under 12 hours demanding Argentina's removal, and where the governing body's president is expected to sit with the Argentine president at the final on Sunday, according to published reports.
This isn't the first time. Remember Algeria filing a formal complaint that produced silence? Remember Belgium discovering their opponent's suspension had been reversed through media reports? Remember Egypt filing a formal complaint that was acknowledged and never substantively answered? Remember Switzerland's coach saying he didn't know a rule existed until it eliminated his team from a quarterfinal? Remember the Champs asking whether the referee had to level for a semifinal and declining to answer his own question? Remember the cumulative pattern, and now add this: a banner, an image, a grin, and a governing body that as of this morning has not said a single public word about what it intends to do. The petition's specific demand, tournament removal, is not going to happen. That needs to be said clearly and directly. The precedent across every similar case in FIFA's history, the Serbia-Kosovo banner, the South Korea Olympics case, the 2014 Argentina case, the Swiss-Albanian gesture, all of them resulted in financial penalties. The highest penalty issued for a political banner case across FIFA's modern disciplinary history was a player-level suspension for 2 qualifying matches, issued to the South Korean player at the 2012 London Olympics. That case involved a banner displayed on the field during a medal ceremony for an Olympics event, a distinction that matters procedurally. No team has ever been removed from a tournament for a political banner display. The 6 million petition people were expressing something real about how they feel about this tournament, but the specific outcome they demanded was never going to be the outcome FIFA's disciplinary process would produce. What the banner incident has actually done, far more consequentially than producing any disciplinary fine, is arrive at precisely the moment when the accumulated weight of this tournament's off-field story needed one more thing to make it impossible for the football world to look away from. Every formal complaint, every VAR controversy, every empty hotel lobby in Kansas City, every family that couldn't afford a ticket, every attorney general subpoena, every week of FBI preliminary inquiry, every press conference question that was asked and not answered, all of it was building towards something, some moment that would fuse all those separate threads into a single image that would be impossible to dismiss as coincidence or overcritical journalism. Lo Celso just handed this tournament that image. This is the sentence that this entire story has been building toward for 25 minutes of documentation. FIFA built a tournament complex enough to generate an FBI investigation, formal complaints from 7 nations, and 6 million signatures on a petition, and then couldn't manage the 30 seconds after the whistle blew. Think about what that means for Sunday. Argentina plays Spain in the final at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, the country with the FBI investigation and the banner incident against the country with the cleanest tournament run of any team remaining. Spain conceded 1 goal in 7 matches. Spain's route to the final included a dominant performance against France, a semi-final where the Champs questioned the referee's level, and a group stage that featured a scoreless draw against Cape Verde of all opponents.
Lamine Yamal, who turned 19 the day before the semifinal, will line up against the 39-year-old Messi in the same final. This final has every ingredient to be a match that stands alone in the sport's history, regardless of anything that happened around it. But the banner will be in the stadium on Sunday. Not physically, but in the room, in the awareness of every official, every tournament administrator, every broadcaster, every journalist who covers what happens if Argentina win and who holds up what in the celebrations after the trophy is handed over. FIFA's disciplinary committee is going to have to make a decision about the 2026 case before or after that moment, and whichever timing they choose is going to be scrutinized against every decision they made or didn't make across the 5 weeks preceding it. The 6 million petition people aren't going away. The 4 state attorneys general aren't going away. The FBI's preliminary inquiry isn't going away. The unanswered formal complaints from Egypt, Algeria, Belgium, and Switzerland aren't going away. Those threads all continue past Sunday. They continue into the review period. They continue into the preparations for the 2030 World Cup. They continue as the documentation of what happened at the most commercially successful, most attended, most financially complex, and most institutionally contested World Cup in the history of the sport. What do you think? Does FIFA's established precedent, a fine and reprimand, identical to 2014, represent a proportionate and consistent response to the banner incident? Or does the cumulative context of this tournament, the FBI inquiry, the 6 million petition, the unanswered formal complaints, demand the response of different scale and visibility? Did Lo Celso's decision to pick up a banner thrown from the stands constitute a spontaneous act of national pride that the disciplinary code addresses with a financial penalty? Or was it a deliberate political statement that FIFA's current relationship with Argentina made it more complicated than any previous banner case in the sport's history? And if Argentina win the final on Sunday and lift the trophy in New Jersey, will the image of that celebration be defined by the second consecutive title, the confirmation of Messi as the greatest player in the history of the sport, the redemption of every comeback from every knockout round, or will it be defined by what someone carries onto the pitch afterward? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe so you're here on Sunday and for everything that follows when the final whistle blows on this extraordinary, infuriating, unmissable tournament. Like this video if the story matters to you. With FIFA's disciplinary decision on the banner still unannounced, with the final less than 96 hours away, and with a tournament that has generated more unanswered questions than any in modern memory approaching its last act, we are absolutely not done with this story.